Welcome to the Thursday General Conversation. My name is Dr. Tahlib McMicheaux. I'm the Regional Resource Minister for Black Church Ministries, ABCOFLASH. Today, we're diving into a powerful and necessary discussion on Juneteenth, its meaning, its legacy, and why it matters more now than ever before. Before I introduce our guest speaker for this morning, I would like to share a little about Juneteenth to just kind of bring everyone to the same playing field. Juneteenth is celebrated on June 19th. This marks the day in 1865 when enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas, finally received word of their freedom 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. This day is more than a historical footnote. It's a symbol of delayed justice, resilience, and the ongoing struggle for equality for people of color in America. After slavery, the Black church became the foundational institution in the fight for justice and equality, a place where freedom was not only preached, but practiced. Churches offered refuge, education, political organizing, and spiritual empowerment. And today, they are still carrying the mantle for the ongoing struggle of people of color in America. It is with great honor that I would like to welcome this morning's guest speaker, a brilliant mind, fearless voice of our time, Dr. Dwuana Bradley, AKA Dr. Daughter, is what I call her. Dr. Bradley is a distinguished professor at the University of Southern California, where she is widely recognized by her peers as an esteemed scholar and educator. Her academic foundation is rooted in rigorous trainings in social science research methodologies with a specialized focus on systemic and structural inequality. Her expertise spans multiple critical areas, including policy, organizational behavior, anti-Black racism, anti-oppressive methodologies. Dr. Bradley's research offers a piercing analysis of how anti-Black sentiment continues to undergird the influence in federal, state, and institutional policies that both intentionally and unintentionally impact Black communities across the diaspora. She challenges systems, confronts injustices, and compels people to think, act, and advocate with a greater purpose. Please help me welcome Dr. Dwuana Bradley. Dr. Bradley, I have 6 questions. Possibly we'll get to them, we may not. I'm going to give you the latitude to kind of go in wherever the spirit leads. But I have some questions. My first question to you, after such a powerful introduction and an incredible background, is who are you outside of all of your academic accomplishments? And how do you personally celebrate Juneteenth?
Well, I want to first just thank you for that amazing introduction. Thank you so much. And also, thank you for inviting me into this community. I am deeply honored. As you know, when you sent me the request to join you all this morning, um, I have a very, very close relationship with God, and I knew that this moment would come where I was asked to be outside of the classroom. I didn't know that it would be before folks who I consider elders and spiritual leaders for,
Mm.
such a broad swath of people. This is my first time being invited to speak with authority in a space like this, and I just am deeply, deeply honored to be here and appreciative of being welcomed so warmly. Thank you. Um, I'd also like to share an image, if that's okay. I'm going to just share my screen, and this will give you all a little bit of insight as to who I am outside of some of those accomplishments and labels that are nice, but only a bit of my history. And that'll help me explain what Juneteenth means to me and how I observe it. So, the people that you see in the far right corner, if my screen is shared, can you let me know that I'm doing all right here
Yes.
with technology? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, great. The people that you see there are the elders in my family who I come into these spaces with. I never come alone, in the words of Maya Angelou. I come as one, but there are many behind me. And I mean that quite literally. I rarely ever speak without reflecting on this image or other images like them. They give me the power that I recognize Dr. Talib announced to everyone that it sounds like I just embody on my own. Um, but it's not me. It's God and it's these people. These people adopted my grandmother. These people protected her when there was nowhere to go. These people are the knowledge base that guides the way that I interpret policies today and the way they impact Black people today. And these people are who embolden me to act free, even when the laws are people who are responsible for interpreting the laws don't do so in ways that give me the right to be free. Um, and so the picture to the left is me at my last conference presentation um, at University of Southern California, where I presented on poetic positionality and qualitative research methods. And I juxtaposed the pictures together in this way because the look on their faces and the look on mine is about what it is to be surveilled, to be gazed upon, and just try to be free, right? And so Juneteenth for me is not as much a celebration of being free as it is a moment to pause and reflect on how to be free. Not be freed, but how to be free,
Mm.
embodying that every day. And I wish that we could get, into more on that, but I know that there's a question down the line about that that I can talk a little more on. But I'm just a girl from St. Louis, Missouri, who was raised by a mother who was a teenage mom, who was raised by a mother who came from Marville, Arkansas, who was adopted by these two in the photo you see, and who had the courage to press on despite what anybody gave them permission to do. And so I'll stop there on the question one.
My second question, Dr. Bradley, is why do you think it has taken so long for Juneteenth to gain national recognition? And what does that suggests about the way America handles Black history?
Hmm. Okay. So I want to continue sharing one more picture here. So this picture is a picture of the flag. If you may not even know there's a Juneteenth flag. I didn't know that until this
Mm.
morning. Juneteenth flag is interesting. It has red, white, and blue like the American flag. It has a star in the middle that represents the lone state, Texas, where I spent roughly 12 years getting my master's degree in educational leadership and my doctorate in educational leadership and policy. And then it has a nova surrounding that lone state star. The star in the middle, if somebody said they can't see the flag. It's in a, can anybody else see it? Give me a thumbs up if you can see the flag. Okay, so it is showing. I'm just going to describe it really, really well. It's half blue, it's half red at the bottom. In the center, there's a white star. That represents the lone state where Juneteenth happened. Hit swap displays, somebody said. Hang on. Did that do it? Okay, great. So in the center, there's the white star, and
Mhm.
around it, there's a nova. The white star represents that in Texas on Juneteenth, those who had been freed by the proclamation, the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, 2.5 years earlier, were now to be freed. Okay? The nova represents that all people were to be freed beyond the state of Texas. Correct? However, what we know is that there were still people enslaved even after Juneteenth, particularly in states like Delaware and in Kentucky. And so even the flag is a representation of how long and how slow justice comes for those at the margins and at the mercy of people who hoard power. And so for me, again, even the flag is a representation of how we have to continue to reflect on what it means to embody freedom, not be freed. I also think that in answering that question, we could look at just some of the language of the
Mm.
general order. As a policy scholar, it's not just my job to look at the outcomes of policy. Did it meet the need? Did it set the priority? And was it enacted? And how many people, actually went along in the direction of the policy? It's my job to look at what the policy intended and think about how it could have been interpreted by those who set forth with the policy and those who the policy impacted most. And so you can't see the old text too well. And I've pulled out some things that are really important there in a small note, but I just want to talk about it a little bit. On Juneteenth, General Granger came and made the announcement that those who were formerly enslaved in Galveston, Texas, were to be freed, that they were to have absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves. And the connection here was to be revamped into something similar to what we see now between employers and employees. What's interesting though is the general also, and it is in the note, advised that freedmen should work quietly at their present homes, which were plantations just the moment before this order became into their awareness, and that they would not be allowed to collect at military posts, and they will not be supported in idleness, either there or elsewhere. And so it meant they were free, but with nowhere to go and no vision exactly of where to be and no necessary resources and no promise of support or resources. And so again, this reiteration of free but not free,
Mm.
free in this context, but not in that context, maybe. And so, again, to me, this slow recognition of it as a holiday is about the slow embodiment of it in everybody's lived lives. When we are trying to grapple with those tensions on an everyday basis, that has to work its way back up through to power and to policy. And I think that is why we see, even today, confusion around how to celebrate it that looks much different than just yesterday. And by yesterday, I mean last year.
I have another question,
Yeah.
and I'm going to kind of go off script, so bear with me. But as we come into a neo knowledge of Juneteenth
Yes.
as a nation,
Yes.
we're also seeing Black history being erased.
Correct.
What does that say to the times that we're in from your perspective?
To me, it can't be erased. From my perspective, people can't be erased. And Black history is a living history. It's a living history that stands in relationship with the larger history of America. And so every day, history is being made. We can't do away with the policies that lay the foundation out for us around what happened. It is in quite literal black and white ink.
Mm,
And so these constraints are but a sign of the times. They're always a sign of the times. When the Emancipation Proclamation came forward, that was a sign of the times. There was a need for the country to end slavery. And there was differences of opinions around that. When the general order came through to Galveston, this is a new sign of the times. But there were still vagrancy laws. So you cannot move beyond, and we're not advised to move beyond that plantation. Today, we have executive orders that are limiting freedom in many ways for many groups. And it's still going to happen. These moments will continue to happen. Um, but it is about how we exist in community, I think, that resists those moments.
beautiful. So my next question is, what role does education play in helping younger generations understand the significance of Juneteenth?
Hmm. Repeat that for me, the beginning.
Okay,
What role
what
does
role does
education
education
play?
play in helping younger generations understand the significance of Juneteenth?
See, this one is all, and we talked about this one, and even hearing it again, it always trips me up because I am younger generations.
Mm. Mhm.
And so it always reads a little oxymoronic or a little paradoxically for me. But that said, I recognize also in the eyes of so many with the role that I have, I'm becoming an elder in many ways and given this opportunity to, um, like I said, be in front of you all as elders to me and share knowledge is both a generational exploration of or dissemination of knowledge upwards and downwards. And so education is right now being called into different areas and arenas to I think inspire really and share knowledge, factual knowledge, and be truth tellers. But more than that, I have to be a human.
Mm.
In my methods courses, I have students who represent all walks of life. Our classrooms are more diverse than ever, and it is teachers who are responsive to the impact of what all of this means to be free or not to be free on people every day. Um, when I taught my class Last week, I had international students in my class from Asia. I had international students in my class from uh, Africa. I have students who are first gen, second gen. I have students who are documented and undocumented, who are partnered with me on projects. I have students who are Black American, of course. I have students who are Latine, um, and they were all deeply, deeply sad, just sad. And this is a moment, again, for me, that just harkens back to who's free and in what
Mm.
time in history and what is freedom. For me, the most impactful conversation that I had was with a student who's from Korea, and she was talking about being in church. And she was talking about having principles around liberation deeply embedded in her heart and Christian values deeply embedded in her spirit. And she felt at odds and confused about how to respond in this moment with research, given the executive orders around research. If you don't know, there are executive orders around research right now and what we can teach and how it can be taught. And there are in the state of Texas laws that are rewriting some of the lesson plans around African American history. And those things are concerning for educators. Those things do impact the way that we share knowledge in the classroom. Those things impact how we can go about rigorously studying these issues. Archival records are held in libraries that we have to have access to. Those things, those archives are being moved around from different places that have held them and protected them and kept them so that these truths can be accurately passed on to generations. And I'm dealing with students who are deeply sad. It goes back to that for me because at the end of all of this, through the many iterations of what it means to be free in the minds of our leadership in every institutional space shifts. But what it means to be free in the body, what it means to be free in the mind and in the spirit as inalienable human rights, God-given rights, never shifts. And it is not specific to certain cultures. And right now, that looks like being human with my
Mm.
students. That
Mm.
looks like hugging them deeply so that they know somebody loves them and their communities. And that is a wild thing to be trying to convince students of in 2025.
So my next question is, and I have a question that I'm formulating in my head off script, on critical race theory,
Sure.
because as I listen to you talk, when I hear the legislative orders against restricting educators, does that have something to do with critical race theory? And does that have in some way impact the effects of Juneteenth?
Hmm. Well, I would have to say so. It is definitely a part of popular discourse that critical race theory in the classroom is an issue. However, I'm not a theory and I'm racialized
Mm.
in the classroom. as an educator, right? The image that I shared at the beginning is not theory. These people are in me. And so what it instills is fear. What it instills is a chilling effect in the classroom.
Mm.
And so while I don't need critical race theory to be a Black educator and to know my family's history and to understand from a literary context what policy means, it is definitely a time that is fearful to be Black and in a classroom because that positionality has been made vulnerable in this context politically. However, again, as a human, connecting with other humans, which is really what education is about, that is easy. Staying in a position where you are drawing out other people's lived experiences so that they can make sense of the world around them and the things that they're reading in ways that don't repeat issues of the past, but find new solutions to them and innovative solutions to them. That's just good teaching, in the words of Gloria Ladson-Billings,
Mm.
right?
Wow.
And our students' rights to use whatever theories they find appropriate to understand and make sense of the world around them. Well, that's academic freedom. That's the First Amendment, right? And so we can debate around how we do those things, but they can never be erased, right? People, their histories, their lineages, what they know to be true, it cannot be undone. And we've seen it in more uh, dire situations, but we see it again. We see it again. And it's on us to nurture the humanity that has to survive those moments.
Beautiful. Key word, humanity. I have another question. Is there a correlation between Juneteenth and current conversations around immigration and deportation?
Oh, absolutely. I, I, I would like to not use such strong language as I feel in my body around that. But there is very clearly still the question of what it means to be free, embedded in what this moment around immigration is all about. What does it mean to be free when your documents are lost, inaccurate, no longer recognized, up for debate? Who in your community will love you the way
Mm.
God would love you, regardless to what those documents say? Who will try to advocate for you? Who will try to reach the minds and hearts of people who don't understand or do not know? This is the same moment. Who will tell you when there are texts, policies, new laws that you're unaware of that give you rights to freedom? Who will bring you the good news? To me, is very parallel.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. I have another question, Doc, which is um, how can people of all backgrounds meaningfully engage with Juneteenth without it becoming performative, a performative celebration?
Mm. I think the worst performance of Juneteenth is the commodification of it. We saw a sort of influx of energy around Juneteenth during the summer of 2020 or following the summer of 2020. The commercialization of Juneteenth is tragic because, again, it's not a celebration of a destination, and it
Mm,
gets distorted in that way when it's commercialized, when it can be marketed and then no longer marketed once the branding is out of style. I talked a little bit
mm,
about style, Dan.
mm,
uh, Juneteenth is about reflection and community. It's about asking very complicated questions about liberation. It is about a way of existing. It has absolutely nothing to do with uh, good flyer organization and the right text to jump out at a customer, a consumer in your store, or how to motivate a certain product line to sell, right?
mm,
It has very little to do with symbolic gestures from organizations that on any other day would wreak havoc on you without understanding your ancestral and cultural cartography, how you got there, who's behind you, what did you sacrifice to be there, what do you sacrifice to stay there. A Juneteenth celebration in that space means little. What happens after Juneteenth? Who do you talk to? Who are you in community with? Who do you help continue to reflect on and continue to be free, to walk in the purpose that God has ordained over their life?
mm.
So the performance is in that big one celebrational event and the shutdown of what it means to celebrate the strength and endurance and persistence and resilience of staying free, of freeing other people. And so, if the question is, how do we do it? I think it's about maybe going to God
Mm, mm,
and asking, how have you done it before now? Because this has been an issue since 1865 on record. And what would it look like? What would it look like for you to do it differently personally?
mm,
Because once we each start reflecting on what it looks like for us to reflect on that free will to be in community and walk in God's purpose, not constrained, then I think we come up with a collective idea and vision on how to do that across cultures in ways that keep us all free.
beautiful. My last question, Doc, is this. In your view, what does true freedom look like today for people of color? And how far do we still have to go?
I'm smiling because I'm smiling because I like to think about this question from the words of Nina Simone. And I just recently posted something from her. And she said that freedom is having no fear. I mean, in her words, this is what she said. I mean, really, no fear. And she talks about being on stage once and being so engrossed and in such a state of flow as artists. I'm an artist and a philosopher. She talks about being engrossed in a state of flow such that she actually felt free for a moment.
Mm,
And I think that is what freedom is. You don't always have it. It's fleeting. How
mm,
often as humans do we get to operate outside of fear? That's biblical. How often as humans do we get to operate outside of fear? That's where love resides. And for Nina Simone, a Black woman, talented pianist, beautiful singer, community activist, internationally recognized. How do you even do all these things with any fear? You called me bold earlier in my in my introduction. I operate with fear. But in the moments that I feel most free, there's no fear.
mm.
There's no fear in that fleeting moment. And that is how come I know we have to always grapple with the question of what it means to be free, regardless of a general order or an emancipation proclamation or any policy that comes out. It's because it is an internal state. And that, when you know that, it can't be shaken.
Mm.
And I think it is over time, and I think it is in community, but I certainly think it starts inside. And it's something you have to honor, and it's something you have to try and spread if you intend for it to stay. So I don't know if that's what we're talking
That,
about. What that
that's
means, what
beautiful.
that means.
Beautiful. So I have one last thing, and then we are going to open it up for questions.
Yes.
Um, I forgot to tell people to refer to the chat while you were talking, but we're going to have about 5 minutes or 10 minutes of questions. And then we're going to move to our parking lot after our executive minister leads us in a word of prayer and final words. So, Doc, in this discussion, I think was absolutely powerful, even though your background and your education have led you towards studying policies and how it impacts the uh, Black people and the diaspora.
Mhm.
What I hear as a reoccurring, I guess, word in everything that you were saying was not how you're focused on one particular culture or cultural group, but how you're focused on humanity.
Mhm.
And I honor that
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, that's who we are. We are a collective body, and we need to learn how to work together,
Mhm.
to celebrate together, to live together.
Mhm.
And that's what I hear. So, in everything that you have said, what would you like us to walk away with today?
Mhm.
Those who are listening, what's the takeaway from everything that you have said?
If I could focus on us for a second, then take away that Black people as a people embody something that is inextinguishable when it
Mm,
comes to this concept of freedom. Take away that when you see Black people in your spaces, that is a mark of resilience so strong that it can be inspiring instead of threatening. Take away that there are lessons that the Black lived experience has to offer that are truly important for us all to pay attention to. People want to characterize this as a critical theory based on race. This is about my humanity. This is about a God-given purpose that I've been walking in since a child, and that I've stepped into along a long pathway that is so thick with footprints behind me
Mm.
that the trail is clear and the pathway forward is not able to be distorted. And it's one that I think we should traverse together. And I'll stop there.
Absolutely incredible. And I want to thank you, Dr. Daughter. I can say that to the others online, it's Dr. Bradley.
Thank
We're
you.
going to open it up for questions. And so if you have a question, please feel free to ask right now.
Dr. Bradley,
Yes, sir.
Tyrone Kane, did the Galveston movement, did it have the support of President Lincoln?
It was an executive, it was a general order that came down from, yes, the federal.
Also, Amendment 4 to the Constitution. Could you put that in perspective with what's going on today here in California about the illegal situation?
When you say put it into perspective, can you give me a little more?
Yes, I've often heard that the Fourth Amendment is the same struggle for those that are illegal coming to America today. And they very seldom mention the fact that Black people had a part and the purpose of the Fourth Amendment. And I'm trying to figure out exactly what the Fourth Amendment is.
So the Fourth Amendment of the United States is a cornerstone of privacy and individual liberty. It's protecting people from unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. When you think about being asked to see your papers, right? Similar to when we were in that stage of Reconstruction and trying to move beyond plantations, right? I think that is what they're saying when talking about when it comes down to illegal searches and seizures. And
Mm.
take down the screen. Sorry, yes. Uh, Again, to me, that goes back to our history and ties back into our struggles, if that's what you mean.
Yes.
Yes.
And one more question off script. Bradley, my sister-in-law's surname is Bradley, and we're from St. Louis, Missouri.
So we probably related then. We're probably related then. Okay. I have to catch up with you. You probably need to email me so I can get the rest of my family tree linked out.
You know.
We
Okay.
got Bradleys and Sims.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And thank you for participating in this conversation.
Thank you for asking your question and joining me today.
Anyone else have a question? I see a hand going up, please.
Yeah, Dr. Bradley, thank you so much. I like your calmness and your journey and how you talk about everything.
Thank
It's
you.
I like it. It's good.
Thank
But
you.
in your view, how has the Bible helped or hindered Black people in America's view of freedom?
Hmm.
Mm.
That's one for Dr. Father. That
I'm
might
going
be
to
a
let you
different,
handle that one.
okay,
But
that might be a different conversation. So I will just say, you know, part of what we lost as a people coming here was our spiritual faith,
mm,
our practices, not our faith. Let me take that back. our faith persisted, our practices shifted. Our practices became an amalgamation. I like those $1 million words. A compilation, $50,000 word, uh, a, 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 a a grouping of all our traditions from the many lands that we came from and the practices and traditions that were imposed on us on plantations. Those came from missionaries and evangelists alike who needed to distort or tamp down that faith that is and has been the cornerstone of our people's survival. You must believe in something more than the immediacy of a struggle that is intended on your social death, your physical death, your spiritual and your spiritual death in order to survive and make it. And so biblically, as people who were of faith, when you come into a space like that, you're absolutely going to need to incorporate all practices. However, you must understand some of the ways in which the Bible was used to promote that enslavement of not only the body, but the mind. And so there are certainly tensions that we, I think, as a people have grappled with and come up with our own traditions like liberation theology in order to meet the moment of our lived experiences in ways that maintain the connection between our cultural position in this space and our inalienable rights to be free, again, to walk in God's purpose on our lives. And so I am not a doctor of divinity like I know many of you are on this call, and Dr. Father is, but that is what's in my heart as somebody who is a believer and who is a believer in the Bible. So I will stop there, but maybe we need more conversations for
I
me to
think you
learn from
handled
you
that
all.
Thank
very
you.
sensitively.
Okay.
It's very
Thank
good.
you. Thank you, Dr. Daughter.
We'll take one more question. Dr. Thurman, I can see the wheels going over there.
Please.
Yes, the wheels are turning. Thank you. Dr. Bradley, I totally impressed by your presentation. And a lot of things are in my mind, but just one. I just put a note up on the board that said, I think one of our issues of those who are out here in the streets and not in politics and in the courtrooms is our limited understanding to CRT. And my awakening did not happen for me until I did some personal study. What is this really all about? The same way that I didn't understand June 13th.
Mm-hmm.
I first heard about June 13th when I was in the service and thought it was interesting and began to research and look at it and see what was going on. And it's just surprising the things that we don't know about what is going on around us. But the key thing I wanted to say was this, is that I believe that the church of that helped groomed me is a church that we still need today. And I don't see it happening now today, in this day, is that the church prepared me to deal with that world, but letting me know in terms of help me to understand my Blackness. Mm-hmm. The church did that. I learned that, from the schoolhouse. The schoolhouse ignored that and what was going on, but it was a church. And when I got back home, it was, again, reinforced by a family type of thing. So I think to me that is very important to understand that. And I think the thing is for those people who do not look like me, it's very difficult for them, even though they hurt, to really understand to walk in my shoes. Like the old proverb about the Native American who says, you will never understand my world until you walk in my moccasins. And I think that is true. We can't go around blaming people who don't look like us for their failure to understand. But part of the issue is that they have not had the environment which they could learn. And part of that environment is the historical context. And I think that is truly missing. And I only bring that up because what I understood was there was a bunch of young lawyers at some of the key universities who was interested in CRT, of how best to deal with people of color in the courthouse, to deal with racism. And I think then it transferred to some other kinds of things. It got convoluted, and as I said, unashamedly, by the whole MAGA agenda, made it something totally different, that it was teaching racism to our children. And of course, that is a lie. But the lie has been around for a long time, so it has not changed anything. But I think to understand those kinds of things, even to understand, June 3rd, it just really blew my mind. I said, how could that happen? Because I'm very young back then. This was back in the late 50s. In a sense, I know people for 2 years and didn't know that it was, and other people knew. I'm sure they did. But still keeping these people as slaves. I said, oh my goodness, and of course, at that time of my life, I was an angry young man because don't forget now, I served on the Korea type thing, and here I am trained to kill folk, and come back home and I can't even go into Woolworth and get a soda share at the counter. So I joined, while I was in Washburn University, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and learned how to let people vent their frustration and sit there and take it. That was hard for me to do.
Yeah.
Because I was trained to kill people. So it's just interesting to think when you think about that.
Yes, it is.
I do appreciate what you were saying, and I pray that your students are really listening and writing great papers for you.
They are listening, and I have great relationships with them. I think because I lead human first and theory last. Again, it's not different. They are the same. When you're a Black person, you must theorize about what you're experiencing in order to make it. So, CRT being characterized as lessons to impose sentiments of hatred is just quite literally the opposite of what it is about. It is and was first and foremost a legal approach that got us our civil rights as we see it today. Thurgood Marshall, Polly Murray, Kimberly Crenshaw at UCLA. I can go on. There's so many people who were legal experts, and this was about securing the legal rights that we all share and benefit from, and can call into question in a courtroom should there need to be recourse for every individual's right to harbor hatred in this country in their heart if that's what they choose to do. CRT is about saying, in order to see a small group of people that cannot be referenced as an outlier in a large data set, or referenced as one in a classroom of 30 because they would be identifiable, that their narrative, what is happening across those narratives of a minoritized group, a group that has been made into the minority in this physical space, right? That their narratives have value. That is true. Each one of our lived narratives have value. There is something to be gleaned from the subjective experience that one goes through as a human. That is what CRT is about. CRT is about saying, not only do we need to understand the majority of a trend, how the majority experience a phenomenon, yes, that's important, But what of those other people? What happens to their narratives and the impacts of the policies we create on their lives if we know nothing about them? That is important. And that is not teaching racism or anybody to hate themselves. And if we value the civil rights that we have as a country, our Constitution, if we value these humans from a God perspective, they cannot be discarded. That's why I feel strongly, not just feel, like I am confident that we cannot be erased. Because as long as we live, the narratives live.
Mm.
The legacy lives as long as we're here. And so it is a matter of if it will be honored and respected in certain institutional spaces. That's all. But that comes and goes. When you're Black, you know that. And that's why the survivance stays. That's why the pride stays. That's why we are here. And so, yes, that's a cross-cultural lesson in my mind in 2025 to learn. That's not an internal community lesson because we would not be here if not for our understanding of it.
Dr. Bradley, I'd like to thank you for an enlightening and powerful and stimulating conversation today.
Thank you for having
Not just on Juneteenth,
me.
but on humanity and love and spirituality. I believe you have covered all of those in this topic on Juneteenth. Whether you identify with the struggle or just beginning to learn, Juneteenth invites all of us to become more conscious citizens, more compassionate neighbors, and more courageous allies. I pray that we have all learned today how to live together as brothers and sisters.